Okay, Marie, we're good to start.
Great. Okay, well, call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to our first meeting of 2020. Happy New Year. Very nice to see everybody here. We have, first of all, we've got to approve our agenda. We've had a bit of a change to the agenda. We have a couple new amendments to the agenda. We are adding the minutes for the November 25th meeting, should have been on there, and also Caleb Corn should have been added as the presenter of the two proposals tonight. So the agenda that you received slightly changed. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda with those changes, please? Those two amendments. Tony moving, seconder. Kevin, all in favor? Okay. Jill, you were,
I wasn't at the meeting.
oh, this is just our agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, I couldn't do the minutes, so.
Oh, this is just accepting the agenda.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, all in favor then. Everybody's in favor. Okay, great. We're going to adopt next to the look at the minutes. The minutes of the design advisory meeting held in the boardroom on November 25th. And these were just received today, and I understand everybody who attended that meeting had a chance to read those minutes. Am I correct there? Video's got them? Okay. Are there any changes or amendments people would like to see on there? No. I just wanted to point out one probably quick error. You might want to note under Councillor Brown's name and Kevin's name at the top of those attending, it should be joined electronically. Otherwise, it looks like they're in the meeting. So I will suggest that one correction. So can I have a motion to accept the minutes from the November 25th Design Advisory Panel meeting as presented with those corrections? Motion for Kevin, seconder. Tony, all in favor of those people who attended? Okay, I think we're good to go. Great. Okay, so we have two presentations tonight. The first one is for property on 515 6-635 Terminal Avenue, and Caleb Corn, planner and current planner. Our planner will introduce it to you. Go ahead, Caleb.
Thank you. Yes, the first application we have tonight is development permit 1252 for the addresses 515, 529, and 635 Terminal Avenue North. The site is located within the Newcastle Brecon neighborhood, and this is within the Corridor 2 mixed-use corridor zone. The relevant design guidelines are the general DP area design guidelines and the Newcastle Brecon neighborhood plan design guidelines. And the other relevant development permit area is the specific North Terminal Avenue development permit area. The proposal is for a single building, 6-story multifamily residential building with 69 dwelling units. One variance has been requested, a height variance of 1.5 meters. So the applicant can begin the presentation.
Thanks, Caleb. Hey, am I going to be permitted to share my screen here?
Yes, you go ahead.
Okay.
Please go ahead, and then you can just introduce with your name before you present.
Oh, sure. It's Matt Hansen, architect for the project. I've got a PowerPoint presentation for you here that I will get started in just a second. There we are. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Caleb. And thank you, Design Panel, for just a minute here. There we go. Well, it looks like a good turnout for the Design Panel, too. Yeah, we always appreciate the opportunity and look forward to your feedback. This parcel, like Caleb said, is located in the Newcastle neighborhood, just minutes from the downtown core and just a couple blocks away from the marina. 3 older single-family homes presently occupy the site, none of any historical or architectural merit. You can see the E&N rail corridor running along the west side of the property. Another single-family home is located to the north, and the Portical Motel borders the east. And then Townsite Road here is the next neighboring intersection to the east. So one fall day, I climbed up onto the roof of the garage located near the back of the middle lot to check out these view corridors. And I took this short video. As we start out looking south from a height that would represent the sight lines from about the 3rd floor, it's hard to tell by this video, but with just a little bit more elevation, the views to Nanaimo Harbor are going to be outstanding. And then there's a rail corridor that borders the back of the property. There's Mr. Parker down here wondering what the heck I'm doing up there. Some of the vision from the Newcastle Preston plan that provided inspiration were to create a higher density residential infill. Terminal Avenue has been identified as a transit-oriented street with the potential for increased density, with the parking at the rear is not to be visible from the street. The long-term plan is to develop a 2 to 6 story street wall along Terminal Avenue North. These are a couple snapshots from the plan that reference some significant community objectives, such as the long-term goal to extend the E&N rail through to Milton Street and beyond. This planned extension would run directly behind our property, creating another pedestrian and cycling link to downtown. As indicated by these blue shades in the lower map, this is an area designated to be redeveloped to a higher density residential infill. Now, there's an understandable desire by the city to remove all access points off Terminal Avenue. Therefore, the introduction of a laneway that will run north-south through the center of the property, as highlighted in red here. To date, the lane easement is registered on 2 properties, the Crest property to the north here, and then in front of this property at 769. Ours would be the 3rd. Meantime, the proposed building footprint has been sited between the lane and the street with access off Terminal Avenue. Considered temporary until the neighboring properties get redeveloped, at which time access off Terminal would be closed and the driveway would be repurposed to amenity space. The slide illustrates the underground portion of the parkade that makes up 61% of the required parking. It's also a secured and covered access point to level 1 of the building. Included here would be the long-term bike storage, electrical vehicle stations, and scooter parking. We're offering a collection of studios in 1 and 2 bedroom units, each one taking advantage of views and natural light where possible. Each unit will have its own private balcony and patio. The size and layout of these units has proven to be extremely popular and affordable in the local market. Well, without going into a lot of detail about the landscape plan that Alyssa will be discussing in a few minutes, I just wanted to emphasize that the plan accounts for a 2.5 meter street widening dedication required by engineering. And as stated before, the closure of the existing curb cuts off Terminal. These ground floor units will enjoy a certain level of privacy to outdoor patios with a combination of fencing and natural landscape buffers. In regards to form and character, like I said, each unit will have access to outdoor space and small balconies. This ensures a visual interest and a balance between the solid and transparent masses. A slight change in materials, but with a consistent rhythm, will ensure architectural interest in an organized fashion. Dubbed at the station, due to its proximity to the railway corridor and its terminal address, we thought it'd be worthy for a centralized clock located above the main entrance. The pedestrian entrance is easily identifiable and celebrated as a focal point of the design. This is a little short 3D animation to help with visualization. The building articulation is managed by reducing the area in the upper 2 floors at each end, bringing the mass down to 4 levels. This is further enhanced by stepping back the building form from Terminal Avenue. Actually step back twice. And due to the grade change, the back of the building is only 5 levels exposed. And variation of the roof lines at the 4th level help create some additional interest. Just a quick note about the height variance. In addition to the natural hardships imposed by the site with the railway corridor and the city-imposed lane easement, there's one other zoning-based rationale I'd like to introduce. Under the Core 2 bylaws, a bonus height of 4 meters or 13 feet is available if at least 75% of the required parking is located below or beneath the building. With this application, the underground component of the parkade makes up 61% of the required total. So we're hoping that our 1.5 meter or just under 5 feet variance could be considered as a compromise. Quality, sustainable materials such as brick and party panel siding make up some of the materials themes throughout the project, representing the traditional heritage of Nanaimo, with a special nod to some classic details of the traditional train station. The color choices are also consistent with the overall earth tone palette. Some crime prevention methods have been implemented into the design solution, listed here. And we also had a great meeting last month with the Newcastle Community Association, and couldn't help but to pass along some direct and purposeful comments, such as happy to support the application in its present form. And it concluded with an overall positive addition to the neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to pass it along to Elizabeth from Prospect and Refuge to talk a little bit about the landscape solutions.
Hi there, I'm Alyssa with Prospect and Refuge. Thanks for hosting us tonight. So as Matt said, the building's set into the grade change, and that really takes advantage of the grade to maximize the pedestrian connections to the grade level. So the front side provides a welcoming street interface with townhouse-style front yard to provide a fine-grained pedestrian friendly street-level experience. And there's more opportunities for flow between the sidewalk and the building. And also it feels nicer as you're walking along the sidewalk to have, the rhythm of the pedestrian connections coming off the building. So we're building a layered planting between the sidewalk and the patio to provide some privacy and some separation, as well as to enhance the view from the sidewalk as well. And we're looking at a 4-foot corrugated metal fence. We have an image of a similar fence in the image board there. Yeah, that's right. To sort of suggest some of the moving kind of character of the port. As we go into the site, level 2 also has at-grade patios at the rear there with planting to provide privacy and separation from the driveway. There's also paths going down both sides of the building to really create like a nice, easily flowing site that's well connected for pedestrians around the building. And we think that's great with the proximity to downtown to encourage walkability. There's 2 amenity areas in the backyard. along with a planted buffer at the rear parking. So one of them is more sort of a, seating area with planting, and the other one we're thinking is more for, bringing your dog for a little walk, or, for just enjoying some landscapes and nature in the back there. And if you go to the next slide. Oh, and actually, before you go to the next slide, sorry, the side yard and the backyard, we're looking at a 6-foot solid board privacy fence with, the board sort of separating a little bit as it gets up to the top to lighten up, so it doesn't feel quite so heavy, while still providing, privacy for both our lot and for the neighbor's lot. If you go to the next slide, we've really focused on planting that's responsive to site conditions and drought tolerance, and there's a mix of indigenous and low maintenance plants with a focus on providing, seasonal interest and change throughout the season. And if you just go to our last, and the other thing on this one is that we have the opportunity, because of the way that the underground parkade is laid out, to provide some significant trees in the back corners of the site, and so we're focusing on putting some nice big trees back there. And if you go to the last slide, it just gives you some details for our fences, as well as our bike parking and our bench. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thanks, Alyssa. Scott, I'll go to you, Scott, from Herald Engineering, talk a little bit about the site servicing from a civil engineer's perspective.
Right. Thanks, Matt. So servicing-wise, it's a fairly straightforward site. We'll have a new water connection kind of down at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. There will be a combined water service for the lot. So that's coming from the far side of Terminal Avenue. And then storm and sanitary will also be new connections there's also existing sewers that are kind of underneath the north end, pretty near the sidewalk of the road, Page North, sorry. Stormwater management is going to be mostly achieved by a detention tank that sits around that, just underneath the access to Terminal Ave. That'll limit the flow rates of stormwater leaving the site to sort of pre-development level, and the site is also kind of benefits from being very close to the ocean. So we're, any water that does leave the site is just a short run before it, ends up in the ocean again, like it would have pre-development. And then I think Matt already sort of covered the temporary, we'll call it, access from Terminal Avenue and the future lane that cuts through the site. I think that covers most of the civil engineering items.
Thanks, Scott. Well, folks, that pretty much wraps up our end of things. I look forward to your comments.
Well, thanks, Mike and Alyssa and Scott. That's great. Nice presentation. That's very clear. Maybe if you could stop sharing your screen, Matt, and then.
Oh, sure.
And I guess the first question is: any panel members would like? Do any panel members have any questions for staff on this project? Don't see any. Okay. Let's see. Who shall I pick from here today? Maybe we'll start with Kevin. But as you're each commenting, perhaps you could make a note of or speak to the height variance of 1.5 meters, so we don't have to go over that at the end. If you have some problems with it, maybe we'll discuss it at the end. But if you're okay with that, if you just mention that in your comments, that would be great. Okay, so Kevin, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Marie. Very nice presentation, Matt, Alyssa, and Scott. I have very few issues, mostly comments, and just a couple of minor things more than anything. I think you did a very, very nice job citing the building, especially with respect to how the lane could eventually cut through the site and how you had a drive aisle to get down to the parking around that area. So the siting of the building and how you addressed that, I think you did a fantastic job. The forming character of the building is is really, really nice. I like the balance of materials that you put in, how you used a brick as a solid element on corners, especially on the entry, to really highlight the corner and the entry. The use of materials, I really like seeing brick. We don't see it enough in projects. I would say everything else is mostly related to the landscape concept. I would just say before that I definitely support the height variance. I think the way you dealt with the front facade and stepping back the upper floors works very, very well. It doesn't look like a dominating front facade at all. And I think even that, with that said, the use of your materials and not really cutting corners on anything, I think you did a really, really good job. The landscape concept, I really like, that we don't see them enough around here, that the street trees that you're putting in are the snowbell styrax trees. I love that tree. To see it as a street tree, it's really going to be a nice feature there. I noticed that there really wasn't pedestrian links to the amenity spaces. Can you comment on that and whether or not you do have any options there to change material surfaces to kind of create walkways?
We reviewed the connection and looked at it, but also thought that because it's, it's a driveway and there's not a lot of, it's not like a road that the flow is going to be quite, slow and natural anyways.
Do you think even of a surface textural change to kind of create more of a link to those areas without affecting really the driving lanes itself?
It's something we can explore and look at design development because,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Hopefully you can do something with that just to draw people into those areas. I noticed there weren't any evergreen trees in your tree palette. Is there a reason for that?
Well, I think it can be hard to find a tree for the scale, but we could look at evergreens in the back,
Yeah.
where I think we're on plan.
Siberian spruce, for example.
Yeah, a Siberian spruce, absolutely.
Yeah, even they don't have to be big fir trees, but just some change in it. Because I think it's something that we deal with sites like not necessarily like this, but sites in areas where all the evergreen trees get cut down and they put up deciduous trees, and it's something that I guess we kind of take for granted. So if there is a way that you can add some evergreen trees to the tree palette, I think that would be great. I heard your rationale regarding the amenity spaces. Did you look at any other options like a gazebo or anything like that, or something that could be a space where people can really hang out in instead of just having like the two benches like showing your landscape concept?
Yeah, I think it's something we can design, develop, and explore whether there would be a desire for sort of a hardscape patio area or not. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of segues into my final question. And I would love to see, especially with the views that Matt mentioned, I would love to see a roof deck amenity space on that upper floor. I think that would just be a total wow factor. And with having 60 some odd units in there, I think that could probably be used a lot. And also being that the top floor is set back quite a bit too, even a glass railing or something up there wouldn't be that much of a problem visually, because you really wouldn't really see it from the street. But that would be the only other thing. If you can get a roof deck, a green roof, an amenity space up there, I think that would be fantastic. But aside from that, and Scott, I liked what you've done with the stormwater management retention area. All of you, I think you did a great job, and I definitely support the variance. So really, it was just the evergreen trees, the pedestrian links to amenity spaces, and and whether or not you can make the amenity spaces like have more features that can be used, or add a roof deck, green roof on top would be the only things that I would recommend if the other panel members support it. So thank you for a very nice presentation, great work.
Good to go.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Kate, would you like to take the floor?
Sure, thank you, Marie. Yes, thank you all of you for your presentation. I really appreciate how succinct it was. That's really good. Firstly, yes, I don't have a problem with the height variance. I really like how you set the building back, and I think it will suit Terminal Avenue very well. I don't have much comment on that. I think the building lighting, you were quite limited with that laneway, and I was looking through the drawings. That's good to know that that's the future sort of, that a laneway is going in there, because I do think that's obviously Terminal Avenue's issue right now is cars turning in and out, and that won't be a future issue when land continues to develop. Anyway, I agree with Kevin regarding the trees. It would be great to see a few more evergreens and even a little more diversity in your tree palette. You have, I guess, 3. And especially if you can get the evergreen trees at the back, because then it will relate better to more existing evergreen trees that are there along the in-end trail. Maybe not specifically where you are, but there is in that neighborhood. The one thing I wanted to bring up that I'm struggling with is the choice of the fence along Terminal Avenue. I don't think, from my opinion, the corrugated metal is really in opposition to the materials chosen and the design of the building. I think that corrugated metal really can work well in a more modern building context, and it just feels really out of place with this building. I could see more of the steel picket fence there, so that the hedge becomes the dominant sort of feature, and not this metal corrugated fencing. I think if you were down closer to the water and your building was actually referencing more industrial buildings, the fence might relate better. So I would suggest that fencing, I think, it doesn't seem to match to me, in my opinion. I don't have an issue with the perimeter fence. It's pretty standard to see the cedar board 6-foot perimeter, but yeah, that corrugated metal really sort of surprised me, given the choices of what the architect has used and how they've designed the building. So I encourage you to reconsider that part. And I also think terminal, like having a little bit more opaque fencing, like picket fencing where the hedge comes through, I think that would be nicer for this type of street context. And I also would like to repeat that I would encourage you to find ways to even mark pedestrian movement through that parking lot, whether it's even just painted movement. It's still, I think it helps with how the residents move through, and it helps just as a signal. Even I imagine there may be kids living here, so mom and dad can say, walk along the crosswalk to the back area, or it's just a little bit more. I think it works better even if it's just parking and it's not high-speed traffic. So I'd encourage you to explore that as well. But other than that, I like the mixed planting palette that you provided, and the building I think will work well here on Terminal Avenue. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kate. Jason, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to echo what everybody said before me. The presentation was really great. I'm really happy with the massing and the form and character of the development. I think using the materiality to really make each of the 4 facades interesting and differentiated, using the various massing around the edges to help erode the profile of the building, I think is very strong, and I think you've created a design that will be a good neighbor, which is always very positive. And I certainly commiserate with you for the loops that you got thrown into with the accommodating the lane. So I thank you for that and your perseverance for that. I support the height variance as well. I did do a little bit of math to see what exactly it would take to get you under that 75%, but it looks like you would have to lose 15 stalls, and so that would probably be a pretty significant reduction in the parking required. So to that end, I do support the variance. I agree very much with Kate as well. You had me until you mentioned the corrugated metal. It seemed a little incongruous with the materiality and the hard work that's gone into the rail character of the building. And so I think going to a more picket fence would be a strong idea. You mentioned that at some point the existing connection on terminal is going to be turned into an amenity space whenever the lane is connected. What do you have an idea with what that might be, and if the detention strategy you have in place is going to be in conflict with that?
That sounds like a good combination question for Scott and myself. The amenity space was just a term thrown out there. That is to be determined. It could be anything from a paved place for kids to play street hockey, or it could be landscaped and recovered as a community garden. There's lots of options. Regarding the stormwater detention, Scott, any?
Yeah, no, I don't envision there being too much of a conflict there. All the stormwater is below ground, so any changes to the surface treatment shouldn't impact it.
Okay. Terrific. And then lastly, can you confirm if the grade at the back of the site is essentially at the same elevation as the railway, so that if that is turned into a hike and bikers facility, it would be a direct connection, or is there a vertical wall with the parking?
No, it's roughly the same grade.
Okay, good. Okay, well then that's all my comments. Thank you very much. I think it's a great project. You've done a fantastic job.
Thank you, Jason. Jill, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Well, folks, I want to say congratulations to both the development team and the city, because I know there are constraints on this site, and I think the presentation was outstanding. I really, really appreciated the animation. I think that just got us there very, very quickly with our review. I do support variance. So given all the hoops you've jumped through, I think that it is a fairly minor thing for us to consider. Now, the amenity areas. I appreciate the flexibility around the amenity areas, but one of the things that everyone hears from me is the notion of the whole dog. Are there going to be pets in this particular building? And the notion of the dog walking really was a positive thing for me, that there was thought toward that. So I support anything, as we get into these more urbanized areas, anything on site that can facilitate folks with pets is helpful. In terms of the detailing, I'm going to jump to the fence detailing as well. I actually support the corrugated. I think it was a really wonderful idea, because when I move through and move along Terminal Avenue, which is a fairly major arterial, I like the notion of the buffer at the front of the building with the corrugated. I like that lower area massing, so I'm down with that. However, I want to say to this team, thank you for bringing forth the notion of step head. I wish we would hear it on absolutely every project we have, because in areas like the Old City Quarter in downtown and this corridor, we do have to be mindful of that. And one of the specifics that you guys hit that I haven't seen in other projects is the notion of how to work with the wood wall. Because I see the wooden wall on some of these very small projects, not yours, but smaller projects. And we have a 6-foot wooden wall in an area where we have challenges. We'll just leave it at that. We have population challenges. We have people challenges. And so the notion of taking the upper part of the fence and spacing it so there are views in, I just support that 100% with the notion of step head in Nanaimo. So I think I think those are all my notes. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to congratulate you on, and I know it just probably makes sense, but the clear entry is really, really wonderful for we folks in design review to have a multifamily with a clear entry and you're articulating it also with a clock. That's super. If there's opportunity for a rooftop amenity, especially with your access to the few quarters you have, I would say bravo. But anyway, thank you kindly.
Great, thank you, Jill. We have Tony, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Echoing my colleagues, it's always hopeful for us to get some instant clarity as well as brevity. Appreciated. To start off, I too have no problem with variance. They are natural results of sloping sites and things of that nature, so it's pretty common and it's not onerous, for sure. So my colleague's comments, the roof deck, yes, it would be nice. Just bear in mind that it means taking up the stair and a little lobby and an elevator and so forth up there, as well as some kind of safety guard, if that's what you're going to look like. So it's not just going to be a flat roof anymore. It will have some protuberances on it, which you'll have to work with whatever mechanical equipment might be up there. So it could be challenging, but it also could be enormously rewarding if the applicant is able to go forward on that, and it may be a benefit to the project. As far as form and character, I echo my colleagues' praise for what you've done. The massing is excellent, the way you've broken the street frontage presence into the distinct three steps. Really scaled the building down along the main frontage there. Ingenious the way it works into the future lane and so forth. Excellent colors, material, texture, and all that kind of stuff. Two things I have a little unease with. One is the metal fence, as others have commented, and I just wonder whether it does seem incongruous, like a foreign element that's got nothing to do with the rest of the building. I just wonder whether a simple metal picket fence or something like that might be just the job, especially with the hedging and so forth, that you've also shown in some of your renderings. And on the notion of incongruous, I couldn't pull my eyes away from those arches that you have at the main entrance and on the two corner windows at each end of the building. Again, you know, with the degree of detail and mapping interest and articulation and frankly elegance of this entire building on all four sides, those arches just kind of left off the page to me as totally foreign elements and completely unnecessary. You know, I'm not suggesting that that's any kind of deal breaker, but I just wonder what the thinking there was that you would introduce such an element that really is utterly unique and has nothing to do with the rest of the building. That's the question. I sincerely would like to know, what your thinking was in doing that kind of thing. I mean, if there's some meaningful rationale for it that I'm not aware of, then fair enough. But it just seems utterly incongruous.
Well, I mentioned in the presentation, a sort of a playful nod to the traditional train station, which a lot of those details do have those curved elements. Frankly, I would like to incorporate it more. It's focused more to the brick detailing, and frankly, as we all know, any curves mean money. Curves are expensive. I'd like to put them everywhere on this particular building, but that kind of level of detailing just isn't practical. And so I had to kind of pick your spot, if you will. And I focused on the brick detailing and highlighted the entrance in the corner because that's going to draw your eye, to the most obvious point.
Yeah, it certainly did that for me, so maybe it's just me, I don't know, but anyway. Aside from that, I think you did an excellent job. I really like the streetscapes that you're going to be having, the animation and the front doors and that whole contribution of, doors off the street and eyes on the street and that kind of thing that we all know and love and look for in every project. So overall, excellent job. Thank you very much.
Tony. And let's see, Angela, please.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, everybody, for your presentation on this really wonderful project. This project is going to be a very wonderful addition to Terminal Ave. So just going through my notes on the development design guidelines. The one thing that popped out to me right away was the idea of community gardens, and really supported in the design guidelines. And just looking at the site, it's probably difficult to put community gardens in the rear of the lot because you're probably restricted to parking. So if that wasn't a possibility to consider that in the rear site of the project, my second thought was adding them to a rooftop deck. The design guidelines also support rain gardens and podium roofs with landscaping. So, in line with Kevin and Tony's comments, I think that would be a really beneficial addition to the project if it's feasible. Not only adding some green space and amenity space, but also the view corridors would be opened up to everybody in the building, of course. And there is limited amount of space for people to congregate on the ground, so having a roof deck would, I think, add to the project for the residents to mix and mingle and enjoy the views together. So it's something I feel strongly about, if it's feasible. And I don't have any issues with the variance. The site is, obviously very constrained, and you have to work within very small space on the lot. So I think that's quite reasonable to support the variance. And the one other thing that popped out was the impermeable parking idea in the guidelines. So I'm not sure if I missed that or if there is some impermeable parking. Maybe Scott could answer.
In terms of permeable surfaces, I think we're a little bit limited in terms of large portion of that parking lot being on top of the parkade. Okay. So there's sort of no ground beneath it to permeate into. Matt, I'm not sure if you can comment on I know a certain portion of the parking needs to be sort of, solid hard surface areas. Not sure if you are able to comment on that any further.
No, I don't really have anything else to add. Sorry.
Okay. I think that's kind of it. Most of the parking is sort of on top of the parkade, so we're kind of limited into opportunities to do that.
Yep. I missed that. Thank you. Aside from that, I think that was a great job, and well done. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Angela. And last but not least, Councillor Brown, would you like to take the floor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everyone for the presentation. That's really well done with the presentation. Matt, we've seen a few of your buildings come through here the time I've been on the panel, and they've always been attractive, but I think this one, in my opinion, is really, really well done. I always like it when Tony uses the word handsome. He didn't use that tonight, so I want to say it's a very handsome building. And so, yeah, no, I think for more, outside the scope of the guidelines, I think it's a shame that there can't be that connection to the rail line. Such a huge missed opportunity that hopefully will be rectified in the future for any developments along the corridor and existing. But, on the other side, Terminal Avenue will be the NIMO's first bus rapid transit route in the next couple of years, so perfect location, and hopefully we'll do more of this. I don't mind the arches. I like them. And I like the curving there. So, but I did agree. The metal fencing did stand out when it was presented, and it's already been commented on. But I did sort of support those comments. I think it might be a better type of fencing that suits the building more. And I think always any chance to preserve some evergreen should be taken, especially, I used to live actually in the neighborhoods to the west there, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say it wrong, but Kate on the line, I want to get my trees right, but I think they're mostly Douglas fir, but there's a lot of big Douglas firs, and obviously you can't preserve those on a site like this, or plant those on a site like this, but something that matches that, I think was fitting with the western neighborhood and the landscape there. Other than that, I think it was an awesome project, well presented, well designed. So, and 100% support for it.
Great, thanks, Tyler. Well, I think I haven't missed anybody. Good. Okay. So let's see here. As for my own comments, I don't really have much to add. Everybody's really spoken well of the project. I agree with all the comments, and I even agree with Tony on the arches. I thought the arches kind of give your building a little bit of a neoclassical air to it. I mean, I could see where you're trying to, pick up that kind of rail station, the symmetry in the arches. And I agree with you, Matt, that more arches might be better than fewer, because I think that would probably draw your eye less to it. But I understand that you're also constrained by costs and so on and so forth. So just a little comment. And again, it's not a deal breaker, but I concur with Tony on that one. And with the others, I also want to support the idea of a possible roof deck, if that's possible, because I think you've got a very constrained site with limited amenity space, outdoor amenity space, at least until that whole laneway situation is organized, is rectified. You don't have a lot of space for 60 odd, the number of people that are going to be in that building to even do anything outside. So rooftop deck would be wonderful, and I think, like you said, the views will be fantastic. So it would probably be a great selling feature for that building. So that would be my only comments to add to the rest. And
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
To the entire panel. The idea of the rooftop deck is a good one. We've done it on other projects with some success. But we also know that that rooftop deck would require a 3.5-foot guardrail around it that is not excluded in our height. And it would have to be added to the variance that we're already asking for. If we were to do that, and I don't know how you do it, show of hands or not, would we all agree to support an extra 3.5 feet to the height variance if the deck went up there?
I think so.
I'm head.
Tony?
I'm not sure a guardrail counts as a building map as far as height definition is concerned. I'm not specifically up on that aspect of the NIMO, but it certainly doesn't in a lot of most other municipalities. And typically neither does the elevator and house and a stair for access count. It may in the NIMO, as I said, but in most municipalities that I deal with, those are considered allowable, without causing a height definition change.
Kevin?
the city could absolutely better.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. The roof deck, and even if it has a green roof attached to it, it doesn't have to take up the entire roof, especially on the front. You can set it back from and just have a torch on the roof on the front portion and set it back 10, 15 feet. And if they do put a transparent railing, like a glass rail on there, without even any sort of guardrail on top of it, I think it's very minimal, and I would definitely support a variance for that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a green roof, but it'd be nice to have some sort of amenity space up there, even the potential for roughing in for electrical for barbecues and even roughing something up there for a sink. But it doesn't have to be even half the size of that footprint. And so I would definitely support that. And like what I said, stepping it back from the front, I think would really help. You wouldn't really even see the railing, especially if it's a glass rail. And you can put potted plants up there with soaker hoses. There's a lot of things you can do to do something really nice up there and really enhance, I think, the experience of that building. Aside from that, I just also wanted to comment that I do support the panel members regarding the front railing material, and I support the architect when it comes down to the arch windows. And I would really like it if you can somehow even label the building as the station somehow, so that people that would click in with the arch windows, because it's true, you're correct, a lot of the older train stations do and did have arch windows in them. So Matt, are you going to look at labeling the building somehow as the station?
The short answer, yes. Our marketing team did a wonderful logo that did not show up in this presentation that we've talked about putting that logo above the entrance. It's a beautiful image, and it just simply says the station in a really special font.
Yeah, I think that's the font, but the clock is up above it, and I love the clock too. I thought that was a fantastic feature. So absolutely. So I definitely support you with respect to the arch window. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, Caleb, are you still there?
Who are you looking for?
Caleb from planning.
Yes.
Yeah, Caleb's in the room, yeah.
If you could just put some clarity to the rooftop exclusions, that would be terrific.
Yeah, so through the chair, I guess this is just a question coming from Matt, and I think it was also hinted at via Tony, the question regarding how we calculate building height. So to clarify, yes, we do measure to the top of a guardrail if there is a rooftop deck. We do not have an exemption for guardrails on roofs from building height. It has been discussed previously, but we have not presently included that as an exemption. I should note as well that we would be measuring to the peak of a rooftop access unless the rooftop met the definition of a green roof, in which case the stairwell would be exempt as well.
Well, this may have to be something that we leave to you to work out with the city staff, I think. I'm hearing.
Marie, what percentage of the roof has to be a green roof for it to be a green roof?
Okay, so maybe Kevin can answer that.
And then I have one other question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did you hear that, Caleb?
Yeah, maybe I'll let Kevin have his second question as well. I'll have to check with his zoning bylaw on the first question in the meantime.
Okay. My second question is to Scott. At the bottom of the drive aisle that goes up to the back, are you going to be putting a catch basin in there? Because that could be a lot of water, and when the snow melts, running down onto Terminal Avenue. So I just wanted to get any plans for that.
The low point of the driveway will have some kind of drainage infrastructure to capture water before it runs down the terminal.
Thanks, Scott.
And through the chair to Kevin's first question, the definition of green roof in the zoning bylaw just specifies a roofing system that utilizes vegetation over a roof membrane to minimize stormwater runoff and reduce heat absorption, and it may be a modular system. So it doesn't actually have a percentage there. So I think we'd have to review it on a case-by-case basis, just to see if it does meet that definition of the zoning bylaw for green roof.
Okay, so any other comments here before we maybe summarize any recommendations? So I'm hearing, I'm hearing 4 different recommendations. First of all, there was one from Kevin about consider improving the definition of the walkway through the site. Now, I'm not, is that correct, Kevin, or maybe you can word that better?
Well, I would say look to add pedestrian links to the amenity spaces.
What did you say again?
Look to add pedestrian links to the amenity spaces at the rear property.
Okay, so look to add pedestrian
links to the amenity spaces at the rear of the property.
Okay. So hopefully Lori got that down. Okay. And also a recommendation for a roof deck was very strongly heard here. And also consider a different fence on, I think it was just the Terminal Avenue side of the building, is that correct? Okay. And also to consider adding more evergreen trees into the tree planting palette. So was there any ones that missed there?
The only other one, I think, I'm not sure who else jumped in on this, and I'm willing to discuss it, is looking at adding features to the, additional features to the rear amenity spaces. And I'll just put it in there, that was just my comment. I think somebody else mentioned something about it. I'd be happy to remove it if nobody jumps up.
Panel members, do you agree with that recommendation, adding other features to the amenity area? Jill?
I'm just wondering if we are asking the applicant to consider roof amenity. That's a pretty significant amenity. And I think that perhaps if we leave it to the applicant and the city to assure that they are going to maximize whatever happens in the rear, knowing that there may be pets there, knowing that there may be children there, that maybe we just let sleeping dogs fly.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Could I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead now.
It has been a fairly common suggestion through tonight's discussion with the rooftop. Personally, I think it's an excellent idea. It really is, though, something that I'd like to bring up with the developer and the development team to get their take. If there was a request that I could make that it not be legislated into your resolution, that the suggestion that we have to do it, and that perhaps that we could work with staff and the development team to see if we can work it in as a part of the solution, but not legislated, if that's the right word.
How about a recommendation such as look at ways to improve the amenity spaces, either through adding a rooftop garden or improving on the ground space, something to that effect?
As long as we're not expected to do it.
Yes, no, I think that
would be
recommendations anyway, I believe. Oni?
I was just going to say that don't we typically word it so that the applicant give consideration to? I mean, we don't have any power to legislate or mandate anything. And suggestions and recommendations. That's all it is, I think.
That's right. Our recommendations are not set in stone, and the applicant will always work with city staff. And if for some reason they can't do it, and being that they're asking for a height variance, chances are this is going to go past city council. But I think if we were going to sort of combine those two recommendations that recommend the applicant add a roof deck with a green roof, and if it's not possible to consider adding features to the amenity spaces, that might be a way to combine those two.
Sounds great, Kevin. Just wondering if you got that, Lori?
It's all go through the reread once we're done here.
We'll have it on the recording, it's okay.
Okay. So, yeah, he phrased that very well, so I won't try and repeat that at this point. Okay. No, I think that's it. And I think, Matt, for your group, our recommendations here are suggestions, and it's, again, something that you're going to go back to the city and try and work through, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I think it shows the city, when you do go for the variance and things like that, that these are things that we thought of, and you've looked at them. If it can't work out, well, then it can't work out. So I think that's the main point of the design advisory or advising. So,
and Marie, I would just add to that we would, I'll just reword it that we would recommend that the applicant add a roof deck / green roof, and if not, look at adding features to the amenity spaces. And if they do consider a roof deck, that we would support the additional height variance for that.
yeah, sounds like it covers everything. Okay, so let's go over that again. We've got that with the recommendation that Kevin just mentioned. We also have the recommendation for the better definition of the walkways, which he also phrased really well, so I'm not going to try and repeat it. And Lori can get that off the recordings. And we'll consider a different form of fencing for the Terminal Avenue side of the building. Consider adding more evergreen trees to the planting palette. So, can I get a motion from somebody to accept this proposal with those recommendations and approval of the height variance? Kevin, can you make a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to accept the application as presented with those recommendations and support for the height variance.
That sounds good. And the seconder? Angela? And all in favor? Okay. Like it's passed unanimous. Thanks very much, all of you, for a great presentation. Appreciate your work and looking forward to seeing the building on Terminal Avenue. So, great, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Great job, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to our second presentation this evening? We have a presentation on for a project on Bowen Road, and again, Caleb Horn will introduce the project. Go ahead, Caleb.
Thank you, Chair. The second application on tonight's agenda is Development Permit Application 1254, and the address is 1641 Bowen Road. The property is located within the residential corridor or Core 1 zone, and the relevant design guideline is the General Development Permit Area Design Guideline. The proposal is for a 5-story multifamily residential building with 21 dwelling units, including 1 live-work unit. There is one variance requested. It is a height variance of 3.3 meters. However, this height variance is only for the end units of the building only. And I will turn it over to the applicant architect, CMTC architect.
Thanks, Caleb, and good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone today, and thank you personally for taking the time to listen to our presentation for the project on Bowen Road, and we're pretty excited about that, and I think you will be too. So, like Caleb said, it is a single-family, currently it's a single-family lot, and we are proposing to change the densification or density to a much higher into the Core 1 with some additional additions. Caleb, can I share my screen?
Go ahead and share your screen. Could you state your name too for our minutes?
Yes, my name is Chris Chung.
Okay.
I'm the architect of record for the project on 1641 Bowen Road. I'm just not sure how to do that right now.
Share your screen?
Yeah.
Should be down at the bottom of your screen. There'd be a green button that says share screen.
A second here, that's not showing up for me.
Through the chair, Chris, you may have to make the application full screen for that button to show up.
There we go. Okay, can everybody see that now?
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, as we had indicated, the project is located at 1641 Bowen Road, and we are overtaking, or we are in the process of redeveloping this parcel, which is a relatively narrow, skinny little parcel, 23 meters by 73 meters, which is somewhat challenging in terms of what we can actually do with this space to meet the densification that is permitted within this area. So the project property is located here, adjacent to a tremendous amount of commercial space to the northwest and some industrial components to the north-south. There are multifamily units surrounding the east and the south, along with single family. Quarterway Elementary School, along with a lot more multi-family residential components to the north west as well. We thought that it would be fitting as it is situated adjacent to the Chevron gas station, and we've seen how much growth there has been in the recent 10, 15 years of all the changes that have been happening along this corridor, that we capture some of that essence into the architectural form and character in order for us to bring forward to you our presentation. The actual building itself, it is, let me just turn this back down. It does consist of 5 stories. The main ground level is an elevated or flat-site parking garage with a live-work unit and lobby, followed by a second, third, and fourth level, which is your residential unit. The second level has a tremendous amount of open space and decks. We want to incorporate as much outdoor living space as possible. And then the upper 2 levels, the third and fourth, also has a great amount of deck space for each of these units. And on the 5th floor, which was we considered were bookend 2 units, allow for viewing both to the west and to the north, as well as the south and to the west, along with this big roof deck garden, which is what we view as more of a community area, a gathering space, not only the residences to meet and mingle, but also for visitors of each one of these units to have family members and friends to come up and gather. It's times like this when we're COVID that we realize the importance of outdoor amenity space that is close, that is usable, that is within your vicinity that will be actually utilized. And so with that in mind, we have really thought about how much we can do with this space. Given the parameters of the site, we've been able to dream up the amenity space up on the deck. Concepts of seating areas for gathering, for meeting in corners here, big, large open seating areas, which really caters to having social connection, but also still physically distanced. And then also community gardens, an opportunity for people to garden up on the roof where there's natural sunlight. Some protection in terms of greening all of the roofs, in terms of planter boxes. The reason they're situated on the east is because of the existing condition of the site in which it's very heavily treed on the adjacent property, where we cannot provide with any certainty of how these trees will be treated moving forward. This is the existing condition with the number of trees that are existing between the 2 adjacent buildings. This is an arborist report indicating the number of trees, the height of the trees, which are extremely tall, ranging from 11 meters to 20 meters. And with that, we looked at all the site conditions. We determined that the best use and the best view corridors would be to the northwest and to the southwest. Flanking the south will be new development coming off of 200 Hampton Road. 200 Hampton Road is a big parcel that is situated at the rear of the property, and this is in the process of being redeveloped as well. So a lot of densification will be happening in this corridor, and we are tapped into that sort of philosophy of how the changing nature of the landscape is going to be. And then so what we are introducing, basically our form and character really capture some of the essence of the commercial spaces that have been created northwest of the subject property. So we wanted to identify some of those materials, some of those forms captured into a residential component. So as you can see here, the building itself technically is 3 floors of residential, and with the 2 bookends, which are further residential, encompassing the community space that were created, seating area with arbors. Our landscape architect will discuss that moving forward, and then how we can have anticipated the use and what can and will be there. This is the west corridor. So this would be facing west, and so the other one was the east. Our front elevation with our main entrance, our live-work component, and then our back elevation is treated just as well as the first or the front elevation in terms of form and character and expression. As I indicated before, this cluster of trees that are sitting here is not on our property, therefore what we can do with it is going to be very limited. The existing tree is actually still higher than what we're proposing. We are asking for a variance. And as you can see, the variance is only encompassing in the areas where, at the 2 ends of the building. And the reason for that mainly is because of the 2 units, but also the elevator shaft is sitting in this corner here. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity to bring all of those elements in to allow us to have access into this very common space that can be utilized. Therefore, we're asking for this variance to accommodate this great need for the common community space due to the site being so narrow that with the new proposal, we are no longer able to provide any of those amenities significantly down on grade. Even with this densification, we are still meeting all the permeable site coverages and the site coverage, so we're not infringing on any of that. But what we're doing is providing the amenity up on the rooftop. We do have some elements such as cisterns and catch basins to deal with runoffs. It is sloping more than 7 feet from the front to the back. The elevated nature of the building allows us to really answer to what's adjacent to on the adjacent property, which is the Chevron gas station. And then some of our shadow studies in terms of determining what the impact would be due to the nature of our site. The sun will always be casting shadow to the left, which is the west, and therefore, as you can see here, the sun shadows are very similar based on what we have already, what's existing and what we are proposing throughout the year. This has happened in the spring. This is in the summer, and this is, this is in the spring, summer, fall, and winter at different times of day. So this is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As you can see, there's minimum impact before and after in terms of shadow. And then what we have also contemplated quite a lot is the idea of this corridor being extremely closed off because of the existing tree to the east. Therefore, what we are proposing is an exterior walk corridor, which will enhance the septet portion of it being treed and extremely it lacks of sort of eyes on the street. With this being open, people coming and going will act as a deterrent for crime to take place in these little narrow strips of corridor. And I think that's a really good way to introduce architectural elements that will help add to the safety of the surroundings and people looking out for one another, which is what neighbors should be doing and could be doing. Some earlier views or schemes have this as an enclosed corridor, but we felt that it was more necessary to have that open area feeling that allows us to have more eyes on the street and dealing with safety as well. So that really triggers the idea of the concept of these open corridors as people are coming and going throughout the day and night. And here are some perspectives. We've used strong, bold, sharp colors to bring out the building to give more of a visual impact. We have strong timber elements with white stucco with darker window banding, large overhangs to not only for sunshade but also for rain. As you can, all these atmospheric rivers coming through, I'm pretty sure it will be a great addition to allow for more rain protection, especially during the winter months within November and end of February, when we want to be outside, but we just can't be. So we took the opportunity to allow some architectural expressions to help mitigate some of these issues where we don't have any of those components. So this is our front entry. We're very cognitive of the transit system and who's going to be going through, and we wanted to capture some of that essence in the idea of what could be. This is an entrance, again, very airy and open. This is a view looking west at the gas station back east onto the property. This is the corridor that we were talking about before. We do have a 6-foot fence along here, but it is not it is slotted at some point. And then again, the open corridor into the residence will really act as a visual eyes on the street for this corridor, as well as the parkade being open, allowing visual connections to see through so that try to mitigate some of the theft within the parkades and whatnot, so you can actually see through this entire building. And this is an aerial over looking back, and as I've mentioned before, 200 Hampton is a large development at the back that's going to have a tremendous amount of duplexes, fourplexes, and I think 2 major 4-story or 5-story buildings coming on as well in the near future. So we wanted to capture some of these elements of the rooftop deck with lots of arbors and seating areas for people to actually come and enjoy the space and be together. But outside, these large patios down here also adds as an architectural interest for bringing the building forward more in the actual grade level to offset the building and not just have one straight linear component. We are considering greenifying this arcade concrete wall, which is similar to what's happening, which is what's existing here, with planters and vines that will grow up through these metal lattices that act as natural ventilation for the parkade, but also for visual connections through the parkade. And with that, I will send it over to Ethan, our landscape architect, to discuss the landscape and the amenity space on the roof. Do you have any questions for me so far?
Well, we'll wait till your landscape person's finished up. So Ethan, what's your full name? If you could state that too when you get going.
My full name is Ethan Lee, last name Lee, L-I.
Oh.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So, hope you are staying healthy. My name is Ethan, and I'm the landscape architect for this project. You know, landscape architects always take a different perspective to see this project. So when I look at this project, I always look at the context of this outside. This is the context map on the right side. See how this urban pattern is very great, and but here's the natural landscape form. Like this is a forest, all kinds of. Like I want to find a balance between this very urban pattern and also this natural landscape pattern. So this become my solution, like how I can provide a lot of urban amenities for our project, but also make people have access to the nature at the same time. So this is a ground level landscape. I can walk you through from the entrance. At the entrance to the Boer Road, we have stairs down to our main building entrance. We try to keep the space in front of the building entrance open and neat because this area is a darkened area. The whole elevation is much lower than the sidewalk. Meanwhile, we also provide a accessible ramp on the other side to make sure that disabled people can also access our buildings. On the west edge, the gas station is much higher than our property. So we have native plants with evergreen trees and deciduous trees to create a green buffer between our buildings and also the gas station. On the east side, as Chris already mentioned, that we keep a lot of existing trees in the front. So these existing trees and the existing shrubs already work as a green buffer between our project and the eastern neighbor. We work close with our arborists, and we make sure that we don't build a 6 feet high fence right underneath the trees. We want to protect the trees and protect the roots. So this is why we end our 6 feet high wood fence at some point just by our arborists. But we also want to make sure that you can feel green and nature here. So we use a lot of native plants in this zone between the 6 feet high fence and our buildings. So this is the treatment for the east edge. Along the back, the south side, we have we keep a quite wide landscape buffer areas with deciduous trees and the native planting. Meanwhile, we also propose a 6 feet high privacy fence along the property to ensure the privacy for our residents. So this is a treatment for landscape treatment along the boundaries of our site. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to provide as many amenities for the outdoor amenities for the residents as possible. So if you look at our roof deck plan, we have urban agricultural gardens, like agricultural planters here for the local residents. And also we have movable table and chairs, so they can easily keep social distancing. As Chris already mentioned, that we have 2 seating areas. We have a seating area with trailer and also a lounge, so people can enjoy the views. So there's 2 ways people can experience nature. The first thing is like you can walk in these gardens, and also you can get really close to these planters. We use lots of native plants. The other way is like you can see something. For example, if you sit in the lounge area, you can see the mountains. You probably can see some oceans as well. So this is the second way you can have a good relationship with the nature. It's like in your view, you see a lot of green. So this is our idea of how to bring people close to nature. If you look at this present image, we use compost papers on the ground, and also we use compost deck for these seating areas. So everything gives people a feel of nature, so they will feel very relaxing in this environment. We also did a planting plan to show like how we create a natural patterns, more organic form of these plant materials. We don't lay them by different rows. We just trying to be more natural look. So this is the 2 planting plans for the ground level and also the roof level. We do mix with the local native deciduous trees and also evergreen trees. I think we provide a large number of trees for our project. We want to keep everything more greener. If you look at closer of our planting, you will see that most of the plants are native plants. They are low maintenance and they're easy to survive in the winter and also in the hot summer. We also read some numbers about the green roof areas. Like we provide at least minimum 13% of green roofs for the roof deck. Yeah, for sure, we think about people how to use the space in the daytime, but also we want to encourage people to use it at night. So we do propose some outdoor lighting for our ground level and also for the roof deck. But meanwhile, we don't want the lighting too strong, so we're trying to also think about the environmental and also the birds, everything. So we try to meet the minimum safety requirement for the outdoor lighting requirement. Also, we want to use the outdoor lighting to help us to do the crime prevention, to make sure every people is safe at night. We do have a lot of details to see how the landscape really talks to the building, to the architecture. So if you look at our details sheets, the materials that we are using trying to keep a natural look and also try to create a clean and a neat landscape. So this is handrail details. As you can tell, this type of things talk to the design of the building. So we're trying to work close with the architects. And also the 6 feet high wood fence, we run the horizontally to make sure that it talks to the building, the walking corridors on the above levels. We do have a accessible ramp, so we have 2 handrails on both sides. All these landscape furnitures, we're trying to achieve something clean and clean look. Some details about the rooftop trailers and also the urban agricultural community garden. Yeah. Meanwhile, we provide enough soil for the shrubs and trees on the roof deck to make sure that they can survive in the long term. So basically, this is the landscape for this project. Like 2 things, we want to create a lot of amenity, but meanwhile, we want to bring people closer to the nature as well. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Ethan and Chris, for a very interesting and well thought out project. Let's see here. Before we go ahead, does any panel members want to ask the staff any questions about this project? Seeing none. First on my list, Tony, would you like to take the floor there?
Cool, sure, love to. Thanks for the presentation. Very well done, very clear. I think you had us all at roof deck, but I'll find my remarks, my own observations and stuff. In terms of general form and character, I think that this is an excellent project, a very nice, crisp, contemporary looking design, the colors, the materials, the textures and so forth, the massing. I think it's all extremely well done, and you've also taken good creative advantage of the site challenges, particularly with respect to the changing level with your neighbor and so forth. This is maybe my first time on any design panel. I was paying attention to lighting on the exterior of the building, and I really commend you for that. Obviously, it's going to not just improve the whole septic capability, but it's going to obviously extend the use of the building, particularly the roof deck for after hours. I think that's great. I mean, that could probably be supplemented by, probably will be, so had heaters up there so you could extend the time of year that the usage. So just all excellent stuff. I don't want to go on and on, but I just think that we don't have any problems, nothing that I am concerned about here, no arches. I think it's a great project. We'll stop there. Thank you.
Are you okay with the variance as well, Tony?
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
That's okay, just, I should remind everybody just to comment on that when we get to you, so that'd be great, thanks.
Good.
Angela?
Hello, thank you, Marie. Thank you for your presentation. I think, as everyone will agree, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful project. Lots of wonderful elements and textures in the building. Worked really well with the constrained site. Of course, the rooftop deck. Wonderful amenity for the people that live there and take advantage of the view corridors. And of course, as we all know, we're moving forward into a life more outside, where we have to visit outside more often. So I'm a big fan of the roof decks, and that is one component. There's lots of multifamily going up on really constrained sites. I think those are becoming more and more important elements that we should consider very closely. Wherever feasible. Everything is well thought out. I really enjoyed the shadow analysis. I think that was considerate of your neighbors. And I appreciate that you're flanking the bookends on either side. And I would support the variance based on, you have this rooftop amenity and you're not stacking it all the way across, and you're having an opening where some of the light can get through and across each side of the building. Very thoughtful, I felt like. So just to concur with staff on a couple of things. There's the wonderful decking that you have at the gas station side of the building. I think it's, I kind of missed what you said about having shelter along that edge. I'm not sure if you're considering more weather protection along those decks, but I would support considering if it's feasible in architecture to create a little bit more weather protection on maybe the upper deck on the two flanking sides, and then also maybe that lower large deck adjacent to the gas station. Otherwise, I would support potentially a bit more landscaping along the front, along Bowen Road. I don't have it up in front of me right now. I made a note, but just a suggestion on that. And then also I do support the idea of having that greenery along the retaining wall on the gas station side, but then also on the other side that is adjacent to the residential. Quite a big retaining wall, so I think that would be a nice element. If that makes sense. Have some trellising along there, maybe not the whole way, but maybe just sections. But just throwing that out there. Otherwise, yeah, wonderful job. Probably one of my favorites so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Tyler, would you like to? Something there.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for the presentation, and I don't really have anything to add. I appreciate the efforts made on the site. I think some of these infill projects can be really challenging, and I think it's been a very well intentioned project. Thank you.
Tyler? Here. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like the design of this building. I think this is a really strong design. I like how massing-wise you've lifted up and created a plinth underneath it that really elevates it. And from the gas station next door, with that inclusion of the horizontal yellow plane, it'll give it this feeling of floating actually up the space there. So I really like that. I like tectonically how you use the materiality to make it seem like there's two pieces that engage with one another. I think the design is very, very strong, and I applaud you for that. I do have a couple, I do support the height variance. It looks like those kind of penthouse top level units have an elevated roof ceiling height, and then if there was an objection to the height, you could probably drop it by a foot or two and still achieve the character you're looking at. I was taking a look at the front and rear facades to see what impact that would have on the proportion of that space, and I think you start to get a little cramped with some of the other elements you have on that space, so I think it's fine the way it is, but so I am in support of that as well. My biggest thing is the access to the rear parking. I understand that it's a very restricted site, but I feel like whoever has those spots in the back are going to curse you every time they come home and leave, just having to go through double gates. And particularly the two people on that are parked up against the fence, then trying to get into and out of those spaces. I'm not sure I'm 100% convinced that it works in real life. It works on paper, but I don't know if I would want to work there. Otherwise, I think you've done a fantastic job. And, yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Kate.
Great. Yes, thank you both for your presentation. I agree with what has been said. I think you've done a great job of creating a lot of amenity space within your building, given your site constraints, of course. And I do think this building is an excellent addition to this to Bowen Road, and it does fit in well with what's happening along this whole corridor, and I think that's great. Where I do see some room for a little bit more improvement is I would love to see a few trees there on the Bowen Road edge of your site. I think whether they're small deciduous, I think there's room for that, and you're not on structure there, so you can probably fit in a few. Also, I was thinking about that edge where the big firs are on the adjacent property, and if those trees were to come down, I kind of think you could fit some other, like I think there's more room for trees in general, maybe some deciduous trees along that edge to also kind of balance with the tall firs. And then also you have something there because you don't have control over those fir trees, and then it would be quite a different landscape if they were gone. So I think you could have a bit more of an understory sort of trees going on there. And I think that would be good as well, given, I think it would work. It would give some nice relief to that second layer of living. And yes, do please try to get things to grow up that wall. And I think wherever you have the larger expanse of concrete, that would do well. But yeah, I think you've done a great, I really like how you bookended that rooftop deck. It feels really comfortable. It feels like a space that people really will occupy. I don't find all roof decks have that feeling, but because you have the two bookends, I actually think your residents will use that and really utilize what you're providing. So great, good job. Just add a few more trees.
Okay. Jill.
Yes, we landscape architects always like to add a few trees. Well, I applaud you folks. You have a very constrained site, and you've just come up with a real jewel for this neighborhood, especially adjacent to the Chevron station, and kind of setting the bar very, very high. So thank you for anticipating all the elements you did, from the architecture being, as Jason described it, setting the building up, right through to the notion of bookending the units you need, but having common space and common outdoor space in a very, very narrow scenario. Now, all my colleagues, everybody just hang in here with me, because I have some questions around the open corridor, which I just love. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful solution in this situation. However, staff did put in a comment about what can we do for mitigation. Now, is there opportunity, given what we've just experienced in Nanaimo over Christmas, and when we do get these snow dumps, is there the opportunity to put any melting and then water catchment solution into the actual decking of, the exterior walkway? I mean, is that something that might be helpful? I don't know. I'm just asking, kind of a snow melting, rain drying, I don't know, scenario that, just isn't the overhead, because I don't think the overhead is the only thing we're concerned about. I think that the open corridor was really brilliant versus closed in, and I just wanted to make a gesture toward that. The only other little picky thing I have is, Ethan, the fence detailing, the privacy fence detail, whether we could consider at the 4-foot point making it a little more open.
Okay, yeah.
So sight in, sight out. We've called them privacy fences for years, yes, and we appreciate the barrier, the boundary, but the visual in and out after a certain point, so we don't have the wood wall.
Sure.
Yep. Thank you kindly for your consideration, and job well done.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jill. Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris and Ethan. I think this is a fantastic project. And as far as presentations, I've been on this committee for many years, and I don't think I've ever seen a more complete package. We rarely see a site section, and you have like a half dozen site sections. I don't think I've ever seen a site lighting plan. And I would just say I just want to thank you and commend you for just a wonderful presentation. I support the variance. In fact, I would love to see another floor on top of this building. I like it so much. I think you did really well citing the form and character. I think you did very, very well. The materials are really balanced. I love the use of the metal cladding, especially in this situation and how you located it. And I think the balance of colors and how they work with the materials work really well. I like how you, in the form and character, you varied the front overhang instead of it just being one overhang distance. You narrowed it on one end and it kind of created a little bit more of a prow on the other. I think that's brilliant. I like how you added the skylight over the covered entranceway. That's not a cheap item. A lot of developers would put in just a standard skylight there, but the sort of the pyramid style works really good. I agree with Jason regarding the parking program. And I'm assuming that some of those parking stalls in the rear might have to be visitor parking. And I'm not sure what your program is going to be for that, but the visitors would have to drive through. And being that there's no street parking anywhere nearby, it might be very difficult for visitors. So I know there's 7 more parking stalls then, because but in some of those cases, some of those ones will require 2 cars. So I just want to know if any of those are going to be in the back designated for visitors. And if so, how is the parking program going to work? Are they going to have to, hit a buzzer and get asked to go through and then go through the other gate to get into the back? And also when they leave, how do they do it? So can you answer that for me?
Yeah, we've actually, just going back a couple of comments in terms of the parking. It is actually it's a city requirement to have that number of stalls. For us, we like to see less stalls just because we understand that Bowen Road, where we're situated, has a walk score of 53, and it's on a transit route. There's lots of commercial and amenities there. Elementary school is right there. The high school is not too far, and all accessible by transit. And so it's really a city guideline that dictated the 28, and so we have to meet that. But I would prefer to get rid of all of them at the back and have more amenity space for people to have an area so they can walk their dog down there and not up on the roof or across the street where they would most likely go and go to the elementary school and have their dog pee there. Because when I lived in Nanaimo and I grew up right across from Forest Park, and you know, you see everybody walk their dogs onto the school grounds, and then you know there's dog poop everywhere. You know, so I understand that very well, and I would love to do that. But again, not to throw it back to the planning department, but this is some of the things that we're working with. And yeah, I agree with you that can be reduced. Maybe 2 or 3 stalls can be taken away, and to add more amenities back there, I think that would be great. And to answer your question about parking and security and whatnot, you know, visitors would only visit somebody if they're home. So if they're home, they would call up and they would, you know, basically with technology now they can open their the gate with their phones, with you know whatever implementations we have through fob systems. And again, at the same time they're leaving, the residents should be there anyway. You should not be having people there. And if you do have people there when you're not there, then you make arrangements ahead of time. So with technology, those are some of the things that technology is a benefit, and I think it can be helpful to have that. But I'm all for reducing the amount of parking spaces and then creating some more amenities down below.
Yeah, I would just say, Chris, that in this instance, I wouldn't recommend reducing the parking because I'd be afraid that visitors coming over to visit and they're driving over to be parking across the street in the school parking lot. And there's, like what I said, there's no street parking anywhere really nearby. And so I just want to make sure that you've looked at a program for that to make sure that, because most of the parking in the back, if there is going to be visitor parking, it would be out in the open. It wouldn't be in the underground area. So I just want to point that out. It's not critical. I just want to make sure that it's addressed. Jill commented on the exterior walkways. I love them. I think that's really clever. It kind of breaks down the facade a lot, and just to defend you on that, and just to make sure that Jill understands, that walkway is on the southeast corner, and the winter winds normally come from the other direction. So the snow on the large sun deck might get built up quite a bit, but I think the weather protection on that side along the walkway is going to be fine. I don't think you really need to look at that. Sorry, Jill. I would say that I don't think you're going to have any issues with that. Also, she commented on the screening and on those large decks, and it looks like they're about 7 or 8 feet tall.
We have to go back and take a look. I think they're about 6 feet tall. Okay. And they are meshed in between, so you do have privacy, but you do have an opportunity to engage with your neighbors. And these are some of the things, as an architect, when we design, you know, complexes, you know, so often we design them, or we would have to design them, that there's privacy, but it doesn't give any opportunity for engagement between neighbors. And I think with the way things are going with COVID and moving forward, what we've learned is that we need to be outside and we need to be engaging with our neighbors. Mm-hmm. And so that's why those slots were designed in the actual panels themselves for that purpose. The whole peekaboo sort of thing is very playful with the kids, and I see that happening with young families growing up there. And so, those are some of the conceptual changes that we wanted to introduce.
It's a challenging thing because a lot of people want to have their privacy, and maybe you can develop some sort of privacy system where the top part can be removed or something, so they want to share time with their neighbor, they can do it. Possibly even a gate or something that could lock on both sides. You might have an opportunity to create something pretty clever with that, because I know not everybody wants to be able to, you know, you just never know who's living next to you, and so I would say that part of it, maybe just spend a little time looking at it. It's not going to be a recommendation for me. I really love the roof deck and how you laid out everything for that. I won't add anything more than anybody else has to say. And I would say I also really like the extent of your planting palette, the trees and the shrubs and ground covers. a lot of types of trees, including evergreens. I think he did very good with that. Love the community garden, the lighting plan, and I especially liked how you are using lights on the trees to highlight them. I agree with Kate regarding the trees. If those trees do get removed, even to plant columnar trees like spiral oaks or something like that, that might, they don't really grow that wide or that tall for that matter, but it is something that you could consider on that side, or even trees like she recommended. And the only big thing was on the front elevation, those are all slope vaulted ceilings that are higher for the most part, correct?
Yes, on the upper level.
On the upper level, that's right. Yeah. So did you consider making the windows taller in those areas?
Yeah, it's really a balancing performance character. And also when moving forward, I didn't mention this, but we are going to be introducing step 3 codes into this project.
Okay.
And in doing so, we have to be very careful about the glazing and how much glazing is going to be happening. And so we felt that what we have is sufficient. If there is opportunity to do that during design development, we will. Those are the first places that we will allocate some of that to, but we still have to be very cognizant of that. And it's actually, moving towards net zero, how this building is going to operate. Yeah, and be cognizant of, the cost implications for that.
Yeah, I noticed that you added transoms over top of the doors, and I really like corner unit windows and how you went kind of seamless on the, not necessarily seamless on the corners, but that really helped to blend those corners together. But even if you can bring, those windows up to the top of the center wood frame area, and even the window, the smaller window on the other side, just needs a little bit of the space up above it. Look at it, and if you meet the step code 3 requirements, I think that would really help. But all in all, I'm just grasping at straws for the most part. I think it's a fantastic project. So well done, and a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Did you have your hand up there, Tyler?
I just had one question as we started to talk about step code. Is there going to be natural gas? Just a question out of curiosity. I know it's not.
We haven't gone to that point yet. I think there should be natural gas introduced into the project only because having heaters up on amenity space that run out of electricity would be silly, right? So
okay, thank you. I would just encourage you not to, because step code makes absolutely no sense without fuel switching. So more electric, the better.
Well,
thank you.
I think there needs to be a balance because we can't rely solely on electric. I just don't think that it's feasible, and I don't think it's there's other reasons why. I won't go into that, but I just think that putting all your eggs into one basket is not always the best thing to do. That's just it's my philosophy on that. But anyhow, we'll go through the design development and bring, as we move forward in this project, the same amount of detail and attention will be put into the project moving forward as we have done so far. So we'll leave it with that.
Thank you. Well, add my comments to this mix. First of all, I just really want to commend you on the project. I think it's a great building, forming character in terms of Bowen Road. I think it looks fantastic there. I'm also really pleased to see a small building that's incorporating 2 and 3 bedroom units, majority of those larger units, which is great because too often, developers try to squeeze as many little studio suites in there, so that's really nice to see. And of course, the roof garden I think is just fantastic, and they've done a wonderful job on designing that. So really appreciate that thoughtfulness in this whole project. Like you said, Chris, you mentioned how a great walkable place, but it's also a great location for anybody who's got mobility issues. And I see you thought of that in terms of the ramping up through there, because you've got to deal with the slope going into the property. The one point, though, I was wondering, I had a couple of questions about accessibility. in the live-work unit, it looks like you can only access that through a staircase going down and then into that patio area. Is that correct?
No, there is a ramp adjacent to that, onto the road, and that will allow you to come down into that unit as well.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, I wasn't quite clear with the plan, so that's good to know. And also on the roof deck, Ethan, the seating area that's up on the wooded platform area, is that raised? Was that also accessible? Is the whole roof garden accessible to somebody, say, in a wheelchair?
The current design, the whole roof is accessible to the, we have to work out these details with the structural engineer involved, so we won't know whether we need a big footing for this trailer or not. Like if we need a big footing for the trailers, we probably may need to raise the wood deck, but at this moment it's not very clear right now. Yeah.
Okay, well, it would really be great to sort of keep that in mind, because I think it's an excellent space for somebody who has mobility issues. They can get easily to the store from that location along those sidewalks and so on. So it's a great building for that. Really wonderful thing. One other sort of little picky thing, I was noticing your front entrance where you have the bike rack. You have sort of those big loop bike racks, and there's 3 of them. And you said you'd like to keep that open, but if you have 3 bikes sitting in there, they're sticking out right into that middle of that space. And I'm wondering if there's I know you're probably required to have those temporary bike racks there. Is there any ones that say would line the bikes up parallel with the wall, for example? So that it's not your typical rack where they're sticking out, but somebody could tie them up to something along the wall instead. Does that work?
Depends on whether we have enough space out there. Like if we want to parallel the wall and put a 3 back rack over there. I can double check this to see if this is the options we can go.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely little corner with a bench in there. You can even add a second bench in the corner, so that it's also a nice place to sit outside there. People could meet there. But I was just thinking, Chris's comment that lots of people also will be biking around there. We've got the bike trail along Bow, and you've got people, so they come up and they line up their bikes, and then there's no room there. So anyway, just a little picky thought there, but otherwise a great project, and really look forward to seeing it built.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so panel, I'm not hearing any. I'm okay with the variance myself. I'm not hearing any objection to the variance for the height. So I think we're good on that. Now, did I hear any recommendations? I know there was from the landscape architects here, consider ways to add more trees on Bowen Road, and if the trees are removed on, I think it's the west side of the building. Is that correct?
The east side.
East side. Okay. Add a few trees. I don't know. Kate, do you want to clarify that?
Sure. How about generally look at opportunities to add more trees, especially along Bowen Road and that east edge, or is it the east edge?
East side of the building.
East side, yes. I wouldn't add if the trees are cut down. I think you could add the trees while the other trees are existing. Yeah.
So consider ways to add more trees to the site, especially on Bowen Road and on the west side of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the recommendation. Was there something with the parking, Kevin?
Was there the east? Wasn't it on the east?
East elevation, sorry. Get that right.
I had no problems with the parking. My only recommendation was consider increasing the height of the windows on the front elevation. That was the only recommendation I had.
So consider increasing the height of the windows on the front elevation?
Yeah, the top, I'll clarify that. Increasing the height of the top story building windows. It's a top story. So is that the 4th floor or 5th floor?
On the front facade.
On the front facade of the top story unit.
Okay. And you didn't want to make a recommendation for parking or something?
No, it's something that Chris is going to have to, and the applicants and the developers are going to have to address, is how they deal with that program, especially if any of the parking stalls in the back are considered parking area, how they're going to deal with that, the programming of how the visitors come through the parking lot. So that's the only thing that it's not a recommendation. they just have to deal with it.
Okay, and was there any other, did I miss something else, just two? Okay, so it sounds like we've just got the two recommendations, but can I have a motion to accept the project as presented with those two recommendations and with approval of the variance, height variance? Motion? Okay, Jason, seconder? Angela, all in favor? Tyler, are you in favor?
I don't think my vote actually matters here. I don't think I can use a vote.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think that concludes our session then. And, really appreciate your coming in today and doing your presentation for us.
Thank you so much.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony?
I mean, just at the beginning, right, I didn't know there was additional participant in with the initial CSH.
Not sure either.
Huh?
The part of your team?
I don't know. There's only the architect, us and the landscape architect, so I'm not sure.
And they just left on call.
You called them?
You're fair, Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks to the committee. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Oh, sorry, Jill? No? No, she's giving the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you much.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Yeah.
See if we can,
See you next time.
See you next time.